The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
I was standing right in the middle of the big entrance hall. My heels made a loud tapping sound on the fancy imported marble floors, just like a judge's hammer hitting a desk in court. It was exactly 11:55 at night. 3 workers from the catering company were moving quietly nearby. They were putting away trays of Otetra caviar that nobody had even touched and pouring expensive Domran champagne down the sink. The musicians had packed up their big cellos hours ago. My house, a $4.2 million place called Stone Shore, was totally quiet, except for the sound of the air conditioning humming. I checked my cell phone. I had just one new message. It was from my mom. She wrote, "We are really tired, honey. Your brother's new futon was a total disaster to put together. Can we do this another time?" I just stared at the screen for a second. They didn't miss my big housewarming party because of some big emergency. They missed it because putting together a cheap piece of furniture for my 20-year-old brother was more important to them than celebrating the business empire I had built. Before I get into how I took them down, leave a comment below. Tell me where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I really want to see who is part of our group here. My heart didn't even start beating fast. In my life, getting panicked is just bad computer code. I simply turned to the head of the catering team and told him, "Go ahead and pack the rest of the stuff. You can head home now." My voice didn't shake at all. I sounded very calm and professional, like someone realizing a long-term business deal has finally failed for good. I walked through the quiet hallways of the east wing of the house. This building was an amazing piece of design hanging over the ocean, and it was supposed to be my big victory lap. I had actually planned the whole thing with my parents in mind. The guest rooms were soundproofed because my dad is a light sleeper. The kitchen was full of that one specific brand of organic tea my mom always says she cannot live without. I built a giant fortress to keep them safe and to make them proud of me, so I could finally feel like I belonged at the table. But as the sound of my footsteps echoed in the big empty hallway, I understood something I should have figured out a long time ago. I wasn't the leader of this place. I was just the person who built her own cage of loneliness. When a house is this huge, the silence isn't nice. It feels heavy. It feels like it is pushing on your ears. It is a real physical sign of the distance between who I am and who I wanted to be for them. I had made a fortress, but the bridge was pulled up, and I was the only person inside. Outside, the ocean hit the rocks with a loud, heavy sound that felt like a heartbeat that the house didn't have. This place was like a museum of a life I hadn't even started living yet, made for people who liked being in the mud instead. I opened up Instagram on my phone. I needed to see the facts. And there it was, a post from 40 minutes ago. It was a picture of my mom and my dad sitting on the floor of a small, messy apartment. There were pizza boxes piled up on a designer coffee table. My brother was right in the middle wearing a sweatshirt and laughing with his mouth full of food. My dad had his arm around him and was smiling in a way he never smiled at me. He didn't look like that when I sold my first tech app or when I bought this huge house. The words under the picture said, "A fresh start for our boy, first night in the new place, priorities." The word priorities really hurt to look at. The difference was very clear. I was standing there smelling expensive flowers in a cold, perfect house made of glass and steel. They were over there smelling like pizza and cheap cardboard boxes, but they looked happy. They didn't hate that I was successful, they were just scared of it. To be around me, they would have to get better and be excellent, and they couldn't do that. But my brother being useless, that was easy for them. That felt normal. Because he was always needy, they felt like they were important. Because I was independent, they felt like they weren't needed anymore. I looked at my own reflection in the big window. My dress was made of silk and I was standing very straight. I looked like a statue. "Okay," I said quietly to the empty room. I wasn't even sad anymore. Being sad means you lost something that had value. This wasn't a loss. This was just a new piece of information. It was a clear sign that the return on my investment in this relationship was zero. I opened the security app for my home. I found the profiles for my mom and my dad. These were the digital keys I had set up just yesterday so they could have access to the house whenever they wanted. My finger hovered over the delete button. I didn't press it yet. Deleting a key was too small and too quiet. If they wanted to make my brother the most important person, that was fine. But I was going to make sure they knew exactly what that decision was going to cost them. I turned off the lights in the east wing, making the whole museum go dark. I walked into my office, sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. It was time to look at the numbers. My computer screen was glowing blue in the dark office. I wasn't looking at my own company's financial reports. I was looking at our family's shared cloud account. It was a digital pile of every bill and bank record my father had been syncing for the last 5 years. He always went around saying he was bad with technology. He wasn't actually bad at it, he was just arrogant. He truly believed I would never look at his files. I clicked on a folder that was named after my brother's education. Inside, I found a bill from 3 weeks ago. It was for a fancy penthouse for a student with a 1-year lease. The total cost, which included a package for designer furniture and a big entertainment system, was $48,000. I just stared at that number, $48,000. I shut my eyes and let the memory come back to me. It wasn't a feeling, it was a memory of money. 7 years ago, I was 23 years old. I was writing the code for the first version of my app on a laptop that would get way too hot if I opened too many tabs. I was working 3 different jobs. I was a barista at 5 a.m. I did data entry at noon, and I coded until 3 a.m. I had asked my father for a $6,000 loan to pay for server costs. It was just a loan with interest. I remembered exactly what he said during a dinner of meatloaf that I had paid for. My father told me, "We just do not have the cash right now. You need to learn how to be tough. Handouts just make you soft." Tough. I looked back at the bill for my brother's penthouse. It had granite countertops, a washer and dryer in the unit, and a room for gaming. My brother didn't need to be tough. My brother needed a resort. I scrolled back even further to 2 years ago. The car loan. My father loves to tell this story at family dinners. He says I signed the papers for her first real car. I'm the one who got her on the road. He always says it with his chest out like a proud leader, but the bank records showed a very different story. I pulled up the history of the bank transfers. Yes, he did sign the papers. But 6 months later, when his stock trading account crashed, he called me in a total panic. He could not make the payment for his own truck. I sent him $14,500. I paid off my own car completely just to get his name off the title, and then I paid 3 months of his house payment so he wouldn't lose it. He never paid me back a single cent. He never even said thank you. Instead, he just changed the story. In his version, he was the hero. But in the records, I was the one keeping him from going broke. I leaned back in my expensive office chair. For years, I thought I was just the daughter. I thought if I could just be successful enough or rich enough, I would stop being a problem and become a source of pride. But looking at these numbers, the $48,000 for my brother's comfort compared to the $0 for my survival, I finally understood how this family worked. I wasn't the daughter, I was the resource. My brother wasn't the son, he was the investment. They didn't help me because you don't help a power generator. You just take electricity from it until it burns out. They put everything into my brother because he was their project. He was the reflection of the fancy life they wanted but couldn't afford. My success didn't make them happy, it made them jealous. It messed up the story that they were the providers. Every check I wrote for them was just a reminder that they were not successful. Okay, I said again. My reason for what I was about to do was finished. I didn't owe them any loyalty. I didn't owe them any thanks. And I definitely did not owe them a key to my house. I closed the folder about the school and opened a new tab for public records. If they were able to spend $48,000 on a dorm room while saying they had no money, I wanted to know where that cash actually came from. My father had not made a good trade in 10 years. I typed in the address of my parents' house. The little circle on the screen spun around, and then the first big secret was revealed. 2 days later, I started my attack. I didn't do it with an argument, I did it by showing off my wealth. I posted a 1-minute video tour of the east wing of my mansion on social media. I didn't write anything emotional about being blessed. I wrote it like a business post. 3,000 square foot guest wing. Ocean views, onyx bathrooms, ready for people to move in. In just 3 hours, the video was everywhere. People I didn't know were talking about my dream life. Old friends from school sent me messages because they were jealous. Or I was waiting for one specific alert on my phone. At 4:12 p.m. it finally came. My father didn't like the post. He didn't comment to say he was proud of me. He sent a text message directly to my phone. He wrote, "That east wing, is it all furnished? I might need a place to stay for a few weeks. Business is getting hard. Send me the gate code. I will stop by tonight to look at it." I stared at the phone. I felt the blood leave my face, but it wasn't because I was scared. It was because I couldn't believe how entitled he was. Send me the gate code. He wasn't even asking me. He was telling me. Right then, the last piece of the puzzle fit into my head. I finally understood why they hated my success but loved my brother's failures. It is something I read about in books, but seeing it in my own family was a shock. To parents like mine, an independent child isn't a person. They are an asset. When that asset does well, you don't say good job. You sell it. You take the value from it. He didn't love me. He loved what I could do for him. He loved that I was a resource he could use when he messed up his own life. My brother was the kid they cared about emotionally. I was just the insurance policy they hated paying for but felt they had the right to use the second they crashed their own car. He wanted the gate code because he thought he owned my stuff. He thought that because he helped make me 30 years ago, he owned a piece of my business. I might need a place to stay. He said it so casually, like it was nothing. He was trying to make it sound small so it seemed like he was doing me a favor by living in my house. I didn't text him back. I didn't say no, and I didn't ask why. I just took a picture of the text on my screen. Then I opened my contacts and went to my friend's name. If my father, a man who never admits he made a mistake, was saying business was hard and asking to move in, it wasn't just a small problem. It was a disaster. And if he was trying to come to my house, I needed to know what he was running away from. I hit the call button. I didn't text my father back. I didn't send him a question mark, and I didn't ask him what was going on. I just closed the messaging app and went to my list of contacts. I found my friend's number. She wasn't just my best friend. She was a total shark in a silk blouse. She worked as a high-end interior designer for the richest people in the state, so she knew every single real estate secret around. She knew who was buying, who was selling, and she especially knew who was secretly selling off their things to stay out of bankruptcy court. She picked up the phone on the very first ring. "Elena, I just saw that video tour you posted. The lighting in the entrance hall is perfect. Please tell me you are out celebrating right now," she said. I told her, "I am not celebrating. I am doing an audit. I need you to do a favor for me." She said, "Just name it." I told her, "Run a search on the title for my parents' house at 4209 Maple Ridge Court. I need to know if there are any debts, court orders, or any recent activity on it." My friend stopped talking for a second. Her social tone went away and she sounded very professional. "Why?" she asked. "Because my father just sent me a text asking for the gate code to my estate. He says business is getting complicated and he wants to stay here. Men like my father don't just stay for a visit, they move in and take over," I explained. She told me, "I understand. Give me 10 minutes. I will pull the county records and the history of the house." We hung up the phone. I didn't pace around the room and I didn't worry. I just sat at my desk and opened my laptop to look at public court records. I felt very calm. For 30 years, my relationship with my family was just a big cloud of guilt and things they expected from me. But numbers were clean. Numbers didn't lie to you. Numbers didn't eat pizza in a dorm room while they ignored everything you achieved. Numbers just were what they were. I searched for my father's name in the local court files. I didn't see anything new, just a few parking tickets from a long time ago. I checked his business papers. Everything was still active, but he had paid his yearly fees late for 3 years in a row. These were small problems, but they didn't explain why he would embarrass himself by asking me for a place to live. My phone rang. It was my friend. 7 minutes had passed. "I have the report," she said. Her voice sounded much deeper and more serious now. "Tell me," I said. "Elena, are you sitting down?" she asked. I told her, "I am sitting, just give me the numbers." She said, "Okay. On the surface, the house papers look fine. He bought the place a long time ago and the value went up nicely." Then she took a breath. But I looked deeper into the hidden debts. 18 months ago, a new loan was put against the house. It's a huge one. I asked, "How huge?" She answered, $285,000. It's from a private lender with a very high interest rate. It's the kind of place you go to when a normal bank tells you no. My brain started moving fast. $285,000. That was exactly when my brother got into that private school called the Standard. It was the same time my mother suddenly showed up with a brand new car last Christmas. "He took almost $300,000 out of the house?" I asked. My friend said, "Yes, but that is not even the main problem, Elena." I asked, "Then what is it?" She told me, "The problem is the paper filed 3 days ago. It's a notice of a trustee sale." I looked at the glass wall of my office that looks over the ocean. "Explain that to me," I said, even though I already knew the answer. She told me, "It means he stopped paying that secret loan 6 months ago. The lender has started the process to take the house. The auction is scheduled for next Tuesday." I said "next Tuesday" out loud. My friend told me, "He doesn't own that house anymore, Elena. He is only a few days away from the police kicking him out. He isn't asking to visit you, he is homeless." Everything suddenly made sense, like a lock clicking shut. Missing my party, being tired, and the business problems, they weren't just being rude. They were terrified. They were drowning. They looked at my success and didn't feel proud. They saw a life raft. They weren't coming over to celebrate me. They were coming to survive off of me. I told my friend, "Send me all the documents." She said, "They are sent, Elena, what are you going to do?" I looked at the security screen on my desk. The camera showed the long driveway leading to my gate. It was empty for now, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way. I said, "I am going to protect my assets." I watched the bar on my screen fill up as the files downloaded. I opened the file. It was more than just a house notice. It was a map of how my parents lost their minds. I looked at the timeline of that secret loan, 18 months ago. That was the very month my brother started at the Standard. He had no business going to a school like that. The loan was for $285,000 and the interest was predatory. They didn't just make a mistake. They gambled their whole life. They put the house I grew up in on the line just to pay for a life for my brother that they couldn't afford. They bet everything on their favorite child, and he hadn't made a single dollar back. And now the bank was calling in the debt. I looked at the date they were supposed to leave. They had to be out by midnight tonight. It hit me like a physical punch. They didn't miss my party because of a futon. They missed it because they were frantically putting their things into a storage unit. They were trying to hide the fact that they were broke. And that text about wanting to stay over, I might need a place to stay. He wasn't asking for a vacation. He was trying to get legal residency. I knew the laws in this state. If I let them inside, if I let them move even one suitcase into my guest room and stay for a few days, they could say they were tenants. They could get squatter rights. To get them out, I would have to go to court and evict them. It would take months. It would be months of them living in my private space, taking my money while I paid lawyers to kick them out. They weren't coming to visit. They were invading. They saw my home as a boat to save them from their own wreck. They were going to pull me under with them and say it was because of family. My phone buzzed again. It was the security system for the gate. Motion detected at the main gate. License plate recognized. I looked at the live video. There it was. My father's SUV was sitting at the bottom of the long driveway. The back of the car was sitting very low because it was so heavy. I could see boxes stacked all the way to the ceiling through the tinted glass. They didn't bring a bottle of wine. They brought everything they owned. I looked at the time. It was 6:45 p.m. They were early, they were desperate, and they just thought that the daughter who always paid for everything would just let them in. They were wrong. The daughter they knew was gone. She died the second they picked a futon over her. I was the boss of my own life now, and I was about to take control of the story. I picked up my iPad. I didn't feel scared. I felt like a doctor holding a sharp scalpel. I opened the app for my house. "System," I said quietly. "Override." The intercom buzzed. It was a sharp digital noise that cut through the quiet in my office. I tapped the screen on my iPad to turn on the sound, but I kept my own microphone off. I wanted to hear what they were saying before they knew I was listening. "She is probably in the back," my mom's voice came through, sounding thin and nervous. "Dad, what if she isn't home?" My father answered back quickly. "Her car is right there. She is home, she's probably just working." He said the word working like it was just a little hobby of mine. "Just keep hitting the buzzer, she will let us in. She always does." She always does. Those 3 words were their entire plan for retirement. I turned on my microphone. "State your business," I said. My voice was loud inside their SUV coming through the high-quality speakers at the gate. I saw my father jump. He leaned out of the car window and put on a fake, happy smile. It looked terrible on his tired, sweaty face. "Elena, honey, you scared us. The gate is closed. We were just in the neighborhood and thought we would surprise you. We brought a bottle of wine," he said. He held up a bottle, but it looked cheap. "You aren't in the neighborhood, Dad," I said. "You live 40 miles away, and you didn't bring wine. You brought boxes." His smile disappeared. "What? No, those are just things we are giving to the church. Look, it's cold out here, just buzz us in. We can talk inside." "I know, Dad," I said. "What?" he asked. "I know about the secret mortgage. I know about the $285,000 you borrowed to play businessman with my brother's life. And I know that as of midnight tonight, you don't have a house to go back to," I told him. There was total, terrified silence. My mother started to cry and covered her face with her hands. My father's face turned from pale to a dark, angry red. "You have no right," he yelled, finally stopping the act. "I am your father. I raised you. I signed for your first car. You owe me this. Open this gate right now." "I owe you nothing," I said. "I paid that car off 7 years ago. I paid your house payment for 3 months when you forgot. I have all the receipts, do you?" "We are family," he screamed. He started hitting the steering wheel with his hand. "You cannot leave us on the street. We just need a place to stay for a few weeks until the settlement money comes through." "There is no settlement," I replied. "There is only an auction next Tuesday." He opened his car door and got out. He walked right up to the camera and stared into the lens. His eyes looked wild. "If you don't open this gate, Elena, I will sue you. I will tell everyone what a heartless, ungrateful person you are. I will break this lock myself." "You are welcome to try," I said, "but before you do that you should check your phone." I looked down at my iPad. I had the app for my smart home open. The profile for my dad was right there. This wasn't just pressing a button, it was cutting the last tie they had to me. I didn't wait. I tapped the button that said Revoke Access. A red message flashed on my screen. "Access denied, permanent ban active, biometric data wiped." Then I opened our family group chat. My brother was in it and so were all my aunts and uncles. I uploaded the file of the house foreclosure. Then I uploaded the bill for my brother's $48,000 dorm at the Standard. I typed one thing: "You didn't come here to celebrate my new house. You came here to burn it down so you could stay warm. My home is not your life raft. Figure it out yourself. Send." On my monitor, I saw my father's phone light up in his hand. He looked down and read it. I saw his knees actually shake. You posted this," he whispered. He looked back up at the camera and his voice sounded broken. "To everyone." "You wanted to crash here, Dad," I said. My voice was as cold as ice. "Now you have crashed." I pressed the button to turn off the audio. Outside he was screaming and shaking the iron bars of the gate, but inside Stone Shore it was quiet. It was a perfect, safe silence. I watched the red lights of my father's SUV disappear as he drove back down the driveway. They looked like two angry eyes fading into the fog. He didn't come back. He knew it was over. Men like my father only act tough because they think you will always open the door. Once they see the lock is real, they give up. 2 days later, the house was sold at auction. The home where I grew up, the place they risked just to pay for my brother's fancy lifestyle, was sold to a developer for almost nothing. My brother didn't finish his time at the penthouse. Since the secret loan was gone and my father's credit was destroyed, the lease at the Standard was cancelled. My friend told me he moved into a tiny studio apartment with 3 other guys. He's sleeping on a normal mattress now. Maybe he will finally learn how to be tough. As for me, I walked out onto the balcony of the East Wing. The sun was going down, turning the ocean purple and gold. For the first time since I started building this place, the silence didn't feel heavy. It didn't feel lonely. It felt like nobody could get to me. I had spent my whole life building bridges to people who only wanted to set them on fire. I thought if I made the bridge strong enough or expensive enough, they would finally come to meet me. But tonight, standing there at the edge of my world, I realized I didn't need a bridge. I needed a moat. I pulled out my phone one last time. I opened the app for my home. I changed the name of the location from the estate to the sanctuary. Then I turned the phone off and put it on the table. I just listened to the ocean hitting the rocks below. It didn't sound like a violent noise anymore. It sounded like a fortress holding the line. I realized that day that family isn't about whose blood you have. It is about who gives you respect. If you have ever had to build a fortress to find some peace, share this story. You are not alone.